Hello and welcome to another interesting edition where we get to meet another high achiever. And today I will be profiling Mirriam Chiyaba, who is the former and as well as the first CEO of the Zambia Qualifications Authority. So she'll be sharing with us her story right from the beginning, from her childhood until where she is today. But I'd also like to say thanks to our host today, who is the Waterfalls Manor Apartments, and you can find them on booking.com. So let's get into this particular interview where I get to meet Mrs. Chiyaba. Hello and welcome to this edition. I'm so glad that you could finally get time and be part of this edition.
Thank you so much, Musonda. It's really a pleasure to make the time to engage with you on this edition. Thank you.
So, how would you describe yourself? Who is Mirriam Chiyaba?
Mirriam Chiyaba, self-starter, motivated. There's a spirit-filled, tongue-speaking Christian. Yeah.
That's an interesting, introduction of yourself. I love the spirit-filled Christian.
Yes. I think we shouldn't be, shy to say that, we are God's children. Yeah. So in everything that we do, because at the end of the day, there's a motivation. There's somebody who carries you along. And for me, Christ is my motivation. He's the one that's, fills me up every morning, gives me the encouragement to see it another day. Because when you get to where some of us get sometimes, you actually need another hand, much more than just a person, to take you to the next day. Yeah.
Okay. Take us back to the good olden days, your childhood. Take us back to your childhood. What was your childhood like? When and where were you born, and what sort of a family did you come from?
Okay. So I was born 52 plus 8 months, 52 years, 8 months ago, to be specific, in 1972, in Livingston. So I'm born and bred from Livingston.
Okay.
My parents, Lozis, originate from Western Province, but settled in Livingston. I grew up in a family. We were eight of us. Now there's 6 of us surviving. But grown up in a family, a humble beginnings, I would say, where all of us had to do our own chores to contribute to the family sustenance, family well-being. I was basically one of those children that today, when you go into the streets, you find children selling vegetables on their heads. That's where I came from.
Really?
My mom,
You sowed vegetables?
Yeah, I sowed vegetables in the streets of Livingston, in Maramba to be specific. Yeah, so some days we would go, effectively, school was in the morning. So you go to your primary school in the morning. In the afternoon, you go in the garden. So most people had backyard gardens. So we went into the backyard garden and you got the vegetables, tie them in the little bundles, put them on your head, and off you go. Mom sent us there. And what was all that about? That was part of our contribution towards our education. Because Dad worked for, the textile industry then in Livingston. He had a reasonable position. He rose up to the rank of manager. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but a very entrepreneurial person. So she was basically helping sustain the family, because 8 children all going to school was not possible, even back then. Yeah, so part of the monies that we were raising from moms, selling at the market and so on, went to supplement that effort in terms of school fees and just day-to-day sustenance. So that's the family that I came from. And so growing up, everyone in the home, it didn't matter whether you were a boy or a girl, you had your fair share of responsibilities. We had a schedule where the boys had to clean, We had to clean. Everybody contributed. So my brothers right now, if they were left alone, even their wives can attest, are able to actually do house chores, they're able to cook. So that's the kind of family I came from. Yeah.
Take us through the schools that you went to, from primary into secondary and into university.
Okay, so in terms of school, I went to Namatama Primary School. This is in Livingston, and up to grade 7, and then went to St. Mary's Secondary School, Maramba. Much earlier, it was known as Maramba Girls. When I went there, it was purely it was a boarding and day school, but now I believe it's a day school. This is St. Mary's Secondary School in Livingston, Maramba. I went there from grade 8 to 12. Got my O levels from there, and then from there obviously went into university. I went to the Copperbelt University, where I started for my Bachelor of Accountancy. Initially, I wanted to be a doctor until grade 10. Okay. So grade 10 came, and I went into this grade 10 class, and I had issues with biology. Biology, myself, and the teacher, we were not seeing eye to eye. I'm sure you've had those. Including the teacher. And it was nuns, and we were not seeing eye to eye. So I got to hate the subject, and then I refocused. And I told myself, okay, I'm good with numbers. I want to go and do accounting. And that's how I found myself at the university, at Copperbelt University, studying Bachelor of Accountancy. Yeah.
So here's a young girl who goes to the Copperbelt for the very first time, goes to the Copperbelt University. Tell us about your experience there. I'm interested to know, because I know that most people, especially when you go into university, some tend to lose themselves. How was it for you? What was your experience at Copperbelt University? At ZIT?
I like that. Yeah, very interesting. So I go into the university, and the background that you have in mind, if you went to an all-girls school, is that you are coming from a controlled environment. This is a Catholic school, all girls, and you're going into a free space, university. The boys are there.
There's gold rush.
There's gold rush. Thank you. There's gold rush.
Yeah.
So you get in that space, and really, even the discipline that you were taught at university, at your secondary school, you really have to tread very carefully. So yes, I went in there, and it was fun. First year was exciting, because then we played all we could with our friends. But I still got the results. The results worked. But one of the things that we all forget, and this is something to the youths, is that when you go out there, change of environment is something that you need to manage. So I managed my first year very well. Second year, not so well. Because, yes, I was getting all the grades and so on, but I think I played more than I studied. So I had to repeat some 2 subjects.
Did you meet Professor Tailoka? Because everybody that goes to Copperbelt University has a story concerning Professor Tailoka. What was your story?
He's one of the reasons. He's one of the reasons that I had to repeat one of the subjects that he taught. Yes. But today, when we meet, we are colleagues. Really? Back then, yes. So you meet the likes of Professor Tailoka, and they take you through the drill. Yeah. So university was a time for me to then now start understanding that you gotta work hard. But beyond working hard, you need to manage people. Because the university environment, sometimes there's people issues at work that will affect how you study, when you study, and so on. So I think it was early at that stage that I learned that it's good for me to manage my relationships with whoever I interact with, be it the lecturer, be it my colleagues, and so on, because because of the freedom, there's personality clashes and so on. So yes, so at that space, I then learned how to ensure effective stakeholder engagement.
So would you say that was the first time that you experienced failure and learned how to manage failure?
Yes, definitely. Because I was excelling throughout. And this first time I'm getting my results, which I didn't believe, by the way. I still don't believe up to now. But I still needed to get to acceptance. So that was the first time I was getting a fail. And I looked at this, I said, no, it can't be me. And this is my core subject. This is what I like most. So it took time for me to deal with it. I couldn't deal with it then and then, such that even at supplementary time, I couldn't go through. So I had to repeat the subject. So, but because of the 1 year of repeat, that brought me to a realization, gave me time to reflect on why I was at university, what that meant, how that I needed to do things differently. So yes, that was the first time I actually, felt it, and it's something that it wasn't pleasant. So now I look at myself and I say, I did an extra year simply because I probably did not manage myself as I should have. Yeah.
You finally graduate. Here's a young lady who's finally graduated. What was your plan then? Take us through into your first job.
Okay, so maybe before we go to the first job, just an experience, because who you are in life somehow is formed by the experiences you go through. So I have 2 months before finishing my university, Mom dies.
Oh, shame.
Yeah, so it was traumatic. And, it's not like she had been in hospital and so on and so. So she had heart failure. And
she was still in Livingston?
No. At the time, she had actually gone. So farming is something that I do as a side hustle, though now almost full time. So Dad and Mom had a farm out in Kaoma. So it was almost planting season. So she had gone to start preparing the fields and so on. So she died when she was in Mongu. She had gone to visit her relatives, but basically she was in Western Province. So so I get this news that Mom has died, and I've got two months before the exams. It was very devastating.
That must have been traumatic.
It was, and it was. I think family stood for me, but much more the friends, because family, it was just, you go for the funeral, you come, you leave them, you have to come back to university. But friends, this is when you know that it's good to have good friends that encourage you, that basically look out for you. So as a way of, in myself, I said, if I fail, then I would have failed my mom, who sacrificed so much to see me to where I am. So I went back and, did I not study in that short space of time? And I cleared. Obviously not with excellent results, but I did clear. And that was the aim. I was saying, only silent as long as I've gone through.
Okay.
So I go through university, I graduate. But before I graduate, so there's bad and good news. So before I graduate, a year before that, education, then you had an opportunity to do your practical, your internship before you graduate. And one of the conditions then, which is still applicable now, but most of the universities do not follow that through, is that you must be attached somewhere. So third year break into fourth year, I was attached to Chilanga Cement, Ndola Works, out in Ndola. So I was attached there, and I worked, well, like in any space, anything that I've done, I learned that I needed to work hard. So I worked hard. So by the time I was finishing my internship, I indicatively was, advised that I would get placed as a management trainee.
Really?
Yes. So by the time I was writing my final exam, I actually had an offer letter that indicated that in January I could report before my results were even out.
That you had a job already?
I had a job before my results were out.
So whether you cleared or not, you knew you had a job?
I knew I had a job.
Nice.
So we closed in about October, November, somewhere there. January I reported, but now not at Ndola Works, but Chilanga Works in Chilanga. So that's me, appointed management trainee. I start work in February. In February 1997, I started work at Chilanga Cement as a management trainee.
Okay.
In the accounting department, learning the work, very excited. I've got a job, I've got a house, because what comes with it, once they give you that appointment, they even accommodate you. So I was accommodated in estates as a management area, and yeah, I was excited, but I knew I needed to work hard, because then I knew that right from the beginning, yes, you have to work hard, but where are you going? So I told myself, when I was a management, an intern, I was looking at these people in the accounts department. I could see how settled they looked. How well it meant to work for Chilanga Cement, because that was one of the big employers then, had just been privatized, still doing very well. I think it still is doing very well. There's just a profile that goes with the company. So I told myself that I needed to work hard, and I looked at my boss, who was the works accountant. I told myself, he was also my lecturer at CBU, so they would come and do part-time. So I looked at him and I said, I want to be a works accountant one day. So I went and started as a management trainee, went through the whole accounting department, the whole process, the process structure of Chilanga Cement, where even in the accounting department, you learned how to cost sand. How much is sand that we are adding to the cement? How much is the clinker? I learned that, I needed to understand the production process of cement for me to be able to account for it. So, so it was very exciting. It was very new. But what was important is that we had people to teach us. So the works accountant at Chilanga was a lady, Mrs. Chansa, Loveness Malukanga Chansa. She's with ZRA now. She took time to teach, and just give us that knowledge. But much more, she expected us to apply what we learned. And there was just, in the accounting section, there was myself. And I had colleagues that I found there on the job and so on. But clearly, because of my training, it was easy for me to excel. And in no time, not only did I excel in my work, but I was also studying my ACCA. Yes, at the time. So I was.
So you quickly advanced on your first job.
My first job, within the year, within the following, by the end of the year, I had already started doing my ACCA, and in a year, I was able to conclude my ACCA. We were given exemptions. So in 1999, I started in end of 1997, about a year and a half almost. By June 1999, I had finished all my ACCA papers. And so one day I met one of my former lecturers who was very surprised that I'd finished my ACCA despite having flunked. So I said, but what happened? So I said, well, I think the environment is different. I know what I want now. I was glad at one point when I was doing my taxation, I got the best taxation grade for ACCA in Zambia at the time. So I was very, very happy with myself. And so finished my ACCA in 1999, June 1999. Went back to Chilanga Cement. I was bonded, so whenever I was on break, the 3 months break, so you go in 3 months, then you have 1 month break and so on. So I would go back for work. Finished my job, my studying. I go back and I say, here I finished my ACCA. What next? I cannot be a management trainee anymore. So they give me a promotion to a management to financial accountant actually. And then I looked and I said, okay, so where am I going? I'm scanning everybody in Chilanga and I'm thinking, I don't think this is for me. I want to be in the corporate world.
Okay.
So that's how I stepped up. As you can tell from my movements from Chilanga to ALS, I was clearly not a person who was satisfied with the status quo at any one time. So I'd gone into the non-banking sector, and I said, I've learned all there is here. I want something more challenging. I'm looking within, if I'm to progress, it's a small institution. If I'm to progress, I'm to be the managing director. But the managing director is part of the owners. So what do? Opportunity knocks. So I interview for director of finance and administration at Teveta. Mm-hmm. And I get the job. So I started off as looking at this advert and saying, do I really want to go in government? Mm-hmm. You know? But I said, but these are the big titles that you want to
that you want on your CV.
These are the big titles that you want on your CV. So the year 2000, when I went to ALS Capital, I was 28 years old.
Wow.
So 31 years old, I get appointed as Director of Finance and Administration for Teveta. Recruitment done by then PwC. Yeah. So I joined, and I go into this government department that I'm looking. Half the people are almost twice my age, and I'm their director. So I'm thinking, how do I manage this? Yeah. So I realized then that, remember the stakeholder engagement, knowing people, how to manage people that I went through at university. Then I realized that I need to not look at my age, but look at the competences that I bring. Because that's basically what I saw when I got the job. So I stayed in Teveta 4 years. My contract came to an end, I renewed, but before the end of that contract, I was headhunted by Zamnet Communications. That one was a headhunt, so I moved to Zamnet as head of finance and administration. I stayed there 4 years as well. Contract ended, stayed on. I told my boss then, Chishala Kateka was the managing director for Zamnet then. I told her I'm bored. So she looks at me, she says, what do you mean? So I said, I know about IT now. I can even maybe configure a little program or something. It's not exciting anymore. I need to look for a job. So she says, no, but you're still here. You need to work. So I said, well, okay. So basically, I came so one of the things that keeps me going is realizing that when I move to an organization, what is my purpose? So you don't just move anyhow, CNP, Chimbi, no plan. So when you are headhunted, then when I moved, they offered me a good package. And I told myself, you know what? I cannot live on peanuts. So if these are going to pay me well, at the time now, for Zamnet, it was purely financial move. For the others, it was about what I was taking there, the profile I was going to get, the value add that I was going to give. So when I went into Zamnet, it was more about a good, a stable income, a good package, yeah. And then contract came to an end. I'm working there and saying, okay, there's the money, but I'm really not feeling it, I'm not feeling this fulfillment. I've now done what I think I could do in this space. So as I was doing that, I had studied for my master's. I've got a master's in business administration. I also I did chartered secretaries and administrators. It's postgraduate. And so continuous learning is one of those things that actually sets you apart. Because I was telling myself, okay, I'm an accountant. I have a BAC. I have ACCA. So what makes me different from the next accountant? So basically I said, okay, let me do corporate governance through the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators. I did that. Then ZDA was looking for a director, corporate services, and board secretary. And board secretary. So I basically moved to Zambia Development Agency as the director, corporate services, and the board secretary. So now the board was an open room for me. So I was basically working in the boardroom. And while I was all rising in all this, I would sit on boards, get appointed because of my finance background. The first board that I sat in, an external board, was the Young Women's Christian Association, pro bono. But that gave me very good experience. Yeah, so fast forward from Zambia Development Agency, I find myself at the Zambia Qualifications Authority.
Yes, where you were the first CEO.
Where I was the first CEO. And not just the first female and first CEO. Yeah. I like that because we always think that women cannot start something. They cannot move something. They always need help, to be heard. Teveta was looking, Ministry of Science, Technology then was looking for a CEO for this new qualifications authority that they only had a board and a few people coordinating, but they needed a CEO. And I remembered all that I learned about the TVET sector, about qualifications when I was at Teveta. So it is important when you go into an institution, you know the institution. So from there, I basically was able to pick up the knowledge that I had from there. The good thing about being an accountant is because you see you're superintending over payments over the whole institution, you need to understand what the institution does. You just don't make payments. You just don't do reports. You must understand the business. So what it does is that then it exposes you to different sectors. And so I went for these interviews and I had some knowledge about qualifications, but what they wanted was a CEO, somebody to lead the strategic direction of the institution, to oversee, what was going on in all aspects. And my exposure from ZDA, I had been in charge of procurement, finance, HR, IT, TVET financing, and so on. That just worked for me. And yes, so I became the first CEO.
What is success for you, and what are some of the successes you scored along your journey?
Having a reference point for qualifications. Yes, I got a lot of support from different sectors, but really at the end of the day, if I wasn't pushing, if I wasn't the CEO, ZAQA may not have been there. So for me, the biggest credit I have is that. And in line with ZAQA is when you talk qualifications, global recognition of qualifications, I was part of teams that sat to actually put set guidelines and standards in that space.
Now, while all this was happening, sorry, did I cut you short?
Yes, so I was going to say, so that's a success in that space, but the other success that I look at now is that I'm able to go into any boardroom, either sitting on the board or building capacity to board members, because that's what I do now on a day-to-day basis. Because there's a lot of gaps in some cases, in some boards here and there. So I do, as an accredited trainer in corporate governance, I do a lot of that capacity building. And one of the successes that I would say is when I come out of a boardroom and I see change happening in an institution where I'm associated with. that is success.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. That's what you call success. Okay.
Partly.
All right. So tell us about how you balanced, because I want to believe during this time that you're advancing in your career, you had a family. How did you balance your time? Do you have a family? Do you have? Are you married? Do you have kids? Tell us about that part of you whilst working hard and being at the helm of an institution.
So I have a daughter who has a daughter who is married to a Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I have a husband, Mirriam Chiyaba. He's an architect. We do farming together. We grow fish, tilapia. We grow different vegetables, but mainly we do butternuts. So some of the butternuts that you see sometimes, they come through Chiyaba farms. We do some onions. We do a bit of crops here and there, and eggs for layers. So when I leave home in the morning, I get in my car, I'm the CEO. I get to the office, I work, I'm the CEO. I come back home. The minute I enter the house, I am Mrs. Chiyaba. I stayed, after my daughter left home and went into boarding school, and after all the other children that we were keeping in the home went into boarding school, I did not have a maid because there was no need for us to have a maid. Even when the children were there, actually we stopped, said like maybe 5 years before they left, because each one had to contribute, because we realized that the children were getting spoiled in that the work was being done for them. So we were not giving them the discipline to be able to take care of themselves. So we didn't have a maid for maybe 10 years. So that meant obviously my children and I and whoever was in the house had to do some work. So today, I think with age, it got up. So a few years ago, I did get the services of a maid, but okay, I obviously didn't have a maid, but we did occasional bringing in of somebody to do a lot of cleaning in the house, on a contractual basis and so on. But pretty much, when I go home, I'm Mrs. Chiyaba, and I can cook. I actually make chilies right now. Chili sauce, very nice chili sauce. You should come and taste one day. I do all sorts of things when I'm home. Balancing the time, it wasn't easy. One time I found myself sitting on 10 to 14 boards, either at committee level or board level, by virtue of maybe my position or just reference and so on. And I had board papers and so on to do. So I reached home, I go in the kitchen, we have dinner, we cook, if there's something to be cooked and so on. 01, 02, I'm working. In the morning, 6 o'clock, I'm out of the house. At one time, it took a toll on me. I needed to take leave.
What do you do in your spare time? Your hobbies? What do you do to relax? Away from being busy and being board chair and being CEO.
I golf. I play golf.
Okay.
I play golf a lot. I enjoy that. Any space that I have, I will play my golf. What that does, it's just not relaxing. It builds my networks. I have met people on the golf course that ordinarily I would not have walked into their boardrooms or into their offices. I have struck friendships with very influential persons because of golf. So I love golf.
Very strategic.
Very strategic. So I always tell people, especially ladies, we want to go to kitchen parties. You're talking to yourselves. Go out there, Go into spaces where the men folk are. I can't be in the bar. I can be on the golf course. And I can meet people. So that's what I like doing. Yeah.
What would you say is the craziest thing you've ever done? CEOs are known to be serious people.
Crazy. Wow. What would you call crazy? Oh, okay. Something that's unserious. No. I think it's in. No. I wouldn't even call it crazy. So maybe when I'm with friends, I just let go.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can dance the night away.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Maybe, but no. Because yeah, you'll find that I can, I'll mix with with my team and so on very easily. And so I create safe spaces with them, so it wouldn't really be classified as crazy. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but no, nothing comes to mind other than the fact that I can actually literally be on the dance floor the whole night. Yeah, when I was young and I could do that, even now I can actually do that. Music is right in the 80s, the 90s music with good company. Can dance the night away.
Interesting. So, do you have any friends you grew up with in Maramba that you still communicate with and that have done pretty well for themselves?
Maxine is one of them, the one I'm talking about. She grew up in Zambia. She's South African because of the apartheid issue and so on. She was actually here yesterday. She's done very well for herself. She went up to working. She was the executive assistant to the Bank of South Africa governor, the Reserve Bank of South Africa, and so on. But now she's CEO of the SADC Association for Bankers Associations. Here, one of my friends that has done very well for herself is Stella Liwongani, former IG. She was my classmate. Yeah. So, from Maramba.
Oh, okay.
Yes, from Maramba, same class and so on. A number of those girls that we went to school with are actually, directors. I've got Yvonne Chulu, she's director at Ministry of Education. Agnes Wilkins now, but Agnes Mumba, she sits on the Lusaka Water and Sanitation Board. She's doctor now. I forget her title, but she was head teacher for a long time at Kabulonga, if I'm not mistaken. So a number of them, actually. We do have a group, former St. Mary's class of 90, and we engage, we interact quite a lot. And in there, you see a lot of influential women, actually.
What advice would you give to a young person? Right now, when you meet a lot of young people, they aspire to be a CEO one day. Is there a strategy that one needs? What advice would you give? Is it easy to get to the helm of an institution?
Being a CEO is a lot of responsibility. So it is not something to be admired lightly. It comes with responsibility. So as they desire to be a CEO, they shouldn't look, because most young people today look at the external. They look at the CEO, they look big car, money, which sometimes we actually don't have, and so on, right? So they look at the image. So the young person out there, if you want to be the CEO today, you need to look at the responsibility that goes with being a CEO, the leadership expectations. What does it take to actually be a CEO? It takes a lot. It's not just me sitting here and talking about it. It takes you knowing what your purpose in life is. It takes you knowing what the institution that you are leading is all about. It takes you knowing that there will be conflict. It takes you knowing that it is not cool up there. There's a lot of fire. But it takes you knowing that you have to be responsible, you have to be disciplined enough. So it takes a lot of hard work to be a CEO. So you cannot today, at 34 years old or at 28 years old, just wake up and say, I want to be a CEO and not do anything to being a CEO. It means you need to study what it is to be a CEO. You need to learn being a CEO. You need to follow influencers, follow those people who actually have been CEO and have been successful at doing that. And then you need to walk your step, because it doesn't mean that if somebody becomes CEO at 28, at 30, 35, then you should also be CEO. Walk your journey, make your journey, and make your sacrifices yourself. It's not all rosy. It takes a lot of discipline, a lot of responsibility, but it's not insurmountable. So it can actually be done. And you build your CEOship today. It means today, if one asks you to demonstrate integrity, you do that. If your boss today asks you to demonstrate a bit of sacrifice, you do that. And you don't say, my job description, by the way, my job description says this. Now CEOs say, but there's one line which says any other duties as may be assigned to you from time to time. But they don't have to say that. So you yourself, you have your job description. To be a CEO, you have to look beyond your job description.
So you should be willing to sacrifice.
You need to be willing to sacrifice. And when you lead an institution...
Is that something that you see among the young people?
No. Very few. Some young people that I come across, they say they want to be a CEO. Why? Because I want to drive a big car. And they will do anything to be a CEO. But that's not how it works. You can't do anything. Because when you say you will do anything, it means you're putting integrity out. It means you are willing to do anything. You know what I mean, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. But I think in our space, you shouldn't be willing to do anything. Being a CEO of success, I can tell you, all those CEOs that we see out there, it means they sacrificed something to be where they are. Yes, they could have been compromised, and I can tell you that once or twice I may have compromised on one or two, decisions that needed to make for the good of the institution. But all of them, for them to get where they are, there has been sacrifice. Sleep, family, yourself sometimes, to get to there. So most of our young people need to change their mind to not look at being a CEO as just to get money. You need to be a CEO to make a difference. And a few years ago, I wrote a small article that everything I do is about making a difference. So even in my personal life, even in my growing of fish, I want to make a difference in the 10 workers that I have at Chiyaba Farms, because I know they feed families, and I've seen them change from where they were when we started this business over 10 years ago to where we are today, because a number of them have sent their children to school. Somebody has bought a bicycle, somebody has bought a motorbike. That's a difference in the family. Somebody has a home, somebody's building a home. So look at the purpose and don't look at the end game for you. That comes with benefits. That's the benefit. Work hard.
Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story today. So there you have it. I've just been speaking to Mrs. Mirriam Chiyaba, first CEO for the Zambia Qualifications Authority, sharing with us her story of success. I do hope that you enjoyed this particular edition. Do join me next week at the same time for another edition. Special thanks to Waterfalls Mano, found on booking.com, for hosting us today. Goodbye for now.